He was 54 years old. He had a mortgage, a pension, a LinkedIn profile that said senior manager. He had been married for 22 years. And every single time his wife tried to have a difficult conversation with him about money, about the children, about how she was feeling, he did one of three things. He went silent and did not speak for 2 days. Or he turned it around so that somehow, by the end of the conversation, she was apologizing to him. Or he left the room. He had never once in 22 years sat with her discomfort without making it about himself. He was not a bad person. He was not cruel. He was not even particularly selfish in the rest of his life. He was emotionally immature. And he had absolutely no idea. And that is the thing about emotional immaturity that makes it so damaging and so difficult to address. The people who have it are almost always the last ones in the room to know. Emotional immaturity is one of the most common and most underdiagnosed sources of relational pain in modern life. It is not a clinical diagnosis. You will not find it in the DSM. But you will find it in almost every family, almost every workplace, and almost every difficult relationship that anyone has ever described to a therapist. And the reason it causes so much damage is not that the people who carry it are malicious. It is that they are genuinely unaware. They have never developed the emotional skills to handle discomfort, disagreement, or another person's needs because nobody ever taught them how. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what emotional immaturity is and what it is not, the specific behaviors that identify it, where it comes from developmentally, what it does to the people who love someone who has it, and what, if anything, can actually change it. Let's get into it. Emotional maturity, in psychological terms, refers to a person's capacity to identify, regulate, and respond to emotional experience, their own and other people's, in a way that is proportionate, considered, and accountable. An emotionally mature person can sit with discomfort without immediately acting to remove it. They can hear feedback without experiencing it as an attack. They can acknowledge when they have caused harm without it becoming a story about how they are a victim. They can tolerate someone else's distress without either fixing it immediately, dismissing it, or making it about themselves. Emotional immaturity is the absence or underdevelopment of these capacities. Psychologist Lindsay Gibson, whose book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents became one of the most widely read psychology texts of the past decade, describes emotionally immature people as having a fundamental intolerance of emotional discomfort. When an uncomfortable emotion arises, guilt, shame, inadequacy, conflict, the emotionally immature person's entire behavioral system mobilizes to make that feeling stop. Not to process it, not to understand it, to make it stop. And crucially, the methods they use to make it stop almost always involve other people bearing the cost. They deflect, they minimize, they blame, they withdraw. They become the victim of the very situation they created. They change the subject, they explode, and then act as if nothing happened. They give the silent treatment until the other person comes to them. None of these are conscious strategies. They are automatic responses, emotional reflexes developed early in life and never updated. Here is the critical distinction the research makes. Emotional immaturity is not the same as being a bad person, and it is not the same as being unintelligent. Some of the most intellectually capable, professionally successful, outwardly charming people carry profound emotional immaturity. Because emotional development and intellectual development are entirely separate systems, and in many families only one of them was ever encouraged. So what does emotional immaturity look like in a real relationship, a real family, a real workplace? Because the signs are specific, and once you know them, you cannot unsee them. The first sign is emotional fragility disguised as strength. The emotionally immature person appears tough, does not cry, does not ask for help, does not discuss feelings, but the moment their emotional world is actually challenged through conflict, criticism, or someone else's need, they fall apart or shut down completely. The toughness is not strength. It is a wall around a very fragile interior. The second sign is the inability to apologize cleanly. Emotionally immature people can say the words "I am sorry," but they almost never stop there. It becomes "I am sorry, but you," or "I am sorry you feel that way," or a detailed account of everything the other person did that caused them to behave the way they did. A genuine apology requires the capacity to hold discomfort without immediately offloading it. That capacity is exactly what is missing. The third sign is making other people responsible for their emotional state. When an emotionally immature person is upset, someone else caused it. When they are happy, someone else is responsible for maintaining it. Their emotional world is entirely externally located, which means that people close to them spend an enormous amount of energy managing a person who cannot manage themselves. The fourth sign is inconsistency between public and private self. Charming, warm, and socially capable in public. Withdrawn, reactive, or emotionally absent at home. The people who love them most often feel like they are living with a different person to the one the rest of the world sees. This gap between the public performance and the private reality is one of the most disorienting experiences a person can have in a close relationship. And it is one of the clearest signs of emotional immaturity in action. Here is where it gets important, because understanding where emotional immaturity comes from is the difference between spending a lifetime angry at someone and finally understanding what you are actually dealing with. Emotional development in childhood requires a very specific environment. It requires a caregiver who models emotional regulation, who demonstrates through their own behavior what it looks like to feel something difficult and respond to it without either exploding or shutting down. It requires that the child's emotional experiences are named, validated, and met with curiosity rather than dismissal, punishment, or silence. Developmental psychologist Alan Sroufe, whose 30-year longitudinal study at the University of Minnesota we referenced in the anxious attachment video, found that emotional regulation capacity in adulthood is almost entirely learned, not innate. The child does not figure out on their own how to manage fear, shame, disappointment, or conflict. They learn it by watching a regulated adult do it, repeatedly, over years, when that modeling was absent, when the caregivers in the home were themselves emotionally immature, dismissive of emotion, or simply too overwhelmed to be emotionally present. The child's emotional development stalled at whatever point the modeling stopped. The 54-year-old who leaves the room during conflict is not choosing immaturity. He is responding with the most sophisticated emotional tool he was ever given, which, in many cases, was nothing at all. And here is the hardest truth in this entire video. Emotionally immature people were almost always raised by emotionally immature people. This does not excuse the behavior. It does not mean the people around them must accept the damage. But it completely reframes where the responsibility for change actually sits, and what kind of change is even realistic to expect. Here is the reframe that this topic almost never gets, and it is the most important one. We tend to talk about emotional immaturity as a problem with the person who has it, but the people most affected by it are rarely the person who has it. They are the people who love them. The partner who has spent years managing someone else's emotional world. The child who grew up making themselves invisible so as not to trigger a parent's fragility. The colleague who has learned to phrase everything carefully so as not to set someone off. The friend who always ends up apologizing for bringing something real to the table. These people carry an invisible weight, and they carry it largely in silence because the emotionally immature person in their life does not have the tools to acknowledge it, and because from the outside, the relationship often looks fine. Here's what I want you to hear if you are that person. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. You are not the problem for wanting emotional reciprocity in your relationships. You have simply been trying to get something from someone who does not yet have it to give. That is not a failure on your part. That is one of the loneliest things a person can experience, and it deserves to be named. Here is what the research and clinical evidence actually suggest, both for those who suspect they carry emotional immaturity and for those living alongside it. Number 1. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, the deflecting, the inability to apologize cleanly, the leaving the room, the single most important thing you can do is not try to immediately stop the behaviors. It is to get curious about the feeling that arrives just before the behavior, the shame, the inadequacy, the overwhelm that the behavior exists to escape. That feeling is where the work is. Therapy, specifically emotion-focused therapy or schema therapy, is the most evidence-based route. These patterns did not form in one conversation. They will not change in one either. Number 2, if you are the person living alongside emotional immaturity in a parent, a partner, a sibling, understand that you cannot want their growth more than they do. You can name what you experience. You can set limits on what you will absorb. You can stop making yourself smaller to accommodate their inability to handle your fullness. But you cannot do their work for them, and trying to will cost you more than you can afford. Number 3, lower the expectation of a dramatic change and raise the standard for what you are willing to live with. Emotional immaturity can shift. People do grow, but they grow when the discomfort of staying the same becomes greater than the discomfort of changing. Your job is not to manufacture that discomfort for them, it is to stop removing it. Emotional immaturity is not a life sentence, but it is also not something that changes simply because someone loves you enough, or waits long enough, or explains it clearly enough one more time. It changes when the person who carries it genuinely decides that the way they are handling the people closest to them is no longer something they can live with. That decision belongs to them, not to you. Now here is what I want from you in the comments, and I mean this genuinely. Which of the 4 signs resonated most? The emotional fragility disguised as strength, the inability to apologize cleanly, making others responsible for their emotional state, or the gap between who they are in public and who they are at home. You do not have to say who you were thinking of. Just tell me which one. Because I guarantee the comment section on this video is going to make a lot of people feel significantly less alone. Subscribe, and next week we are going into something that touches almost everything we have covered on this channel. People pleasing, where it really comes from, what it is doing to you from the inside out, and why it has nothing to do with being kind. See you then.